The morning didn't rise quietly. It cracked open like a whip slicing through the sky, its silver light spreading across the city as if determined to reveal the truth the world had been denied for far too long. The courthouse, normally stiff, silent, almost ancient in its indifference, felt different today. It vibrated. It breathed. It pulsed with the same restless energy that had taken over the streets nights earlier. The AVAAZ petition for justice for Yu Menglong had finally reached the court. And the case was no longer a whisper. It was no longer a rumor. It was no longer just a plea. It was a storm. The marble steps of the courthouse shook under the weight of hundreds gathering before sunrise. Fans arrived with banners folded under their arms, candles tucked inside their bags, and determination blazing brighter than the morning sky. They weren't just here to witness history. They came to make sure nobody dared bury it again. The moment the courthouse doors cracked open, a shockwave rippled through the crowd. Cameras lifted. Phones rose like shields. Journalists scrambled over each other. Something huge, massive, was about to break. Inside the hallway, a gavel echoed. Outside, the crowd exploded. The petition, which began as a trembling digital plea on AVAAZ, had now transformed into a colossal legal storm, one that the authorities could no longer dodge, quiet, or smother. With hundreds of thousands of signatures, and growing by the second, this was no longer a fan movement. This was a force. A movement with teeth. A movement with fire. A movement with truth clawing at the door. And the courthouse, no matter how grand, no matter how guarded, could not hold back the truth any longer. The scene outside looked like a movie that no director could recreate even with the biggest budget. Drones buzzed above the courthouse, forming shapes in the sky. First a candle, then a single word glowing like wildfire. Justice, the crowd roared. Reporters shoved microphones forward as fans held posters reading, "The court must listen. The world is watching. He deserved better. This case is now unstoppable." Every sign, every chant, every raised fist hit the morning air like a drumbeat of truth. At exactly 8:03 a.m., a long black car arrived. The door opened slowly, and a team of lawyers stepped out, each holding thick folders bursting with evidence submitted through the AVAAZ petition. Murmurs rose. Cameras clicked. The crowd leaned forward as if pulled by an invisible thread. One of the lawyers, an older man with silver hair and fierce eyes, stood on the steps and raised the documents high. "These," he said, voice booming through loudspeakers, "contain testimonies, footage, witness accounts, and discrepancies that have been ignored for far too long. Today, they enter the court. Today, the truth enters with them." The crowd erupted like volcanic fire. Chants burst like cannon fire. "Yu Menglong! Yu Menglong! Yu Menglong! Open the case! Open the case!" Inside the courthouse, security rushed down the marble corridors. Every corner buzzed with tension. Judges whispered among themselves. Legal clerks tripped over documents, overwhelmed by the avalanche delivered by the petition movement. For the first time in months, the name Yu Menglong echoed inside a federal building, not as a headline, not as a rumor, not as a tragic memory, but as a case. A case that refused to die. A case that refused to be washed away. A case now recognized by law. A massive screen outside the courthouse displayed real-time petition numbers. As the clock struck 8:15 a.m., a surge of signatures hit the counter. It jumped so fast the digits blurred. 670,914, 671,000, and 671,399, 670, 2,555, 670, 3,900. The crowd screamed as the numbers flew upward. A girl held her phone high, showing a live stream of international fans signing in real time. Comments flew across the screen. Signed from Malaysia. Signed from the UK. Signed from South Korea. Signed from the Philippines. Signed from the United States for Menglong, always. A ripple of emotions swept through the crowd. People hugged strangers. Some sank to their knees in gratitude. Others cried openly, overcome by the realization that the world had not forgotten him, that the world would not allow him to disappear into unseen shadows. At the courthouse entrance, the silver-haired lawyer placed his hand on the door. He didn't push it open yet. He turned back to the crowd, scanning the sea of candles, posters, and hopeful eyes. "This isn't just a case," he said, voice trembling. "This is a promise." The crowd went silent, as if the air itself was listening. "A promise," he continued, "that even if someone tries to silence a man, they cannot silence an entire world demanding truth." When he finally opened the door, sunlight burst through the cloud cover and hit the courthouse facade like a spotlight. The crowd gasped. Someone whispered, "He's with us." Inside, the courtroom felt like a pressure cooker. Judges sat stiffly, the weight of global eyes pressing down on them. Each document submitted bore the same header: AVAAZ Petition, Justice for Yu Menglong Evidence Packet. Unofficial testimonies, digital trails, discrepancies, timeline gaps. A young clerk flipped through the materials and froze. She had encountered something nobody had expected. She rushed toward the judges, whispering urgently. The head judge stiffened, nodding slowly. Something had shifted. Word spread through the courtroom like electricity. "There's new evidence. There's a timeline conflict. This completely changes the narrative." As the tension built inside, the drama outside intensified. The crowd suddenly parted as another car arrived, not a government vehicle, not a media van, but a white sedan with tinted windows. The door opened, and a woman stepped out, a woman whose face fans immediately recognized. It was Xiao M., the creator of the AVAAZ Petition. The woman who turned grief into movement. The woman who turned silence into thunder. The woman who started the unstoppable wave. Cameras swarmed her. Fans reached out to touch her hand. She looked overwhelmed, yet resolute. With tears in her eyes, she raised a single white candle. "This is not for me," she said. "This is for him. For the truth he deserved. And today the court will finally hear his name." The crowd exploded in applause so loud it shook the pavement. Suddenly, a helicopter passed overhead. Reporters shouted into microphones. News tickers lit up around the world. Yu Menglong petition enters court. Crowds gather outside courthouse. Case could reopen based on new evidence. Public demands full investigation. Back inside, the judges reviewed the documents with growing concern. Their brows furrowed. The pages turned rapidly. Something inside those folders was causing visible shock. Then the courtroom door opened again. A man walked in slowly, head down, holding a sealed envelope. He approached the bench and whispered to the judges. Their eyes widened. One judge stood abruptly, slamming his palm on the desk. The crowd outside heard the echo through the walls and erupted again, sensing something monumental had just occurred. By noon, the courthouse steps were packed shoulder to shoulder. Drummers beat powerful rhythms. Banners waved like wildfire. Chants rose like storm winds sweeping through the city. Then the doors opened. A court spokesperson stepped out. Microphones lunged forward. He raised a paper. The sunlight hit it like a spotlight. The crowd held its breath. "The court," he said slowly, "has officially accepted the AVAAZ petition regarding Yu Menglong." A scream erupted, one of shock, relief, agony, triumph, all merging into a single sonic explosion. "This case," he continued, "is now under active judicial review." Chaos. Beautiful chaos. People cried. People fell to their knees. People screamed into the sky. Fans hugged strangers with trembling arms. Journalists shouted updates. The petition counter surged again. 675K, 680K, 685K. The spokesperson wasn't done. "In light of new evidence provided through the petition," he said, voice cracking slightly, "the court will open a preliminary investigation. Additional files will be requested. Witnesses may be summoned." The courthouse stood like a giant frozen in breath, a towering block of stone that had never felt the weight of a million hearts pressing against its walls. But today it trembled, not from storms, not from age, but from voices, thousands of them, chanting the same name with the same fire: Yu Menglong. And when the AVAAZ petition officially crossed the courthouse threshold, everything changed. The air thickened. Time slowed. Even the walls seemed to listen. It wasn't just paperwork entering the building. It was a storm disguised as ink, a tidal wave carried in a cardboard box. Outside, fans didn't simply gather. They arrived like a human tsunami. Banners cracked like lightning. LED boards glowed like burning suns. Voices rose and merged into one rhythmic heartbeat pounding against the city's spine. For Menglong we stand. For justice we demand. The chant rolled through alleys, leapt across rooftops, shook through shop windows, and even slipped into subway tunnels where commuters began whispering his name again. A girl dropped to her knees holding a framed picture of Yu Menglong. She didn't speak. She only pressed the photo tightly to her chest, as if the collective heartbeat of the crowd could somehow revive him. Beside her, someone lifted a phone displaying the live petition count, 676,204 signatures, and climbing by the second. Every tick upward felt like another drumbeat in the growing storm. Then the judges arrived, 3 black cars with no plates, silent as shadows drifting across the pavement. When the judges stepped out, they expected order, silence, perhaps even fear. What they saw instead was a wall of humanity that refused to step back. Phones lifted, lights flashed, eyes burned with an intensity that made even the lead judge swallow hard. The crowd didn't move to block them, but neither did they shy away. They parted like an ocean, but their presence thundered louder than any storm. Inside, a clerk carried the petition box wrapped in red tape and stamped 3 times like a sacred relic. The moment he touched it to the filing desk, the marble floor seemed to throb beneath everyone's feet. Some claimed the lights flickered. Some said the box pulsed with heat, like it was alive. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "This one's different." In the hushed hallway leading to the courtroom, reporters stood shoulder to shoulder, microphones raised, eyes unblinking. The courtroom doors cracked open, just a sliver, and a beam of sunlight sliced through the space, illuminating the label on the petition box. Case: Justice for Yu Menglong. For a single second, the entire corridor froze. No cameras clicked. No journalist breathed. The silence had weight. The moment had power. It felt like the building realized this wasn't just another case. This was history knocking. Outside, police officers stood uncertain, expecting chaos, but witnessing unity instead. Thousands of candles flickered on the courthouse steps, each flame a silent promise. Paper cranes drifted through the air like white tears. Protesters stood motionless, holding signs that struck deeper than any shouted argument. His story will not be buried. Tell the truth. We see you. One officer locked eyes with an elderly woman holding a candle. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She simply said, "Do the right thing." Something in him broke, not in defiance, but in guilt. Then the sky shifted. At exactly 4:11 p.m., a spiral of birds swept over the courthouse in perfect formation, circling above the building as sunlight glittered off their wings. The crowd looked upward, breath caught in their chests. The spiral tightened, shimmered, then scattered in all directions like a celestial signal. Someone whispered, "Even the sky knows." And not a single person disagreed. Finally, a young court clerk stepped out, shaking. He clutched a single sheet of paper, official, stamped, irreversible. His voice trembled as he read the words destined to ignite the world. The petition is now a legal inquiry. The court has accepted the case. The crowd erupted. Some screamed. Some collapsed in relief. Some hugged strangers like family. Cameras shook. Police stepped back, unable to contain the tidal wave of emotion. Reporters shouted into microphones they could hardly hold still. Above all the chaos, one unshakable truth rose like a phoenix from the noise. The fight for Yu Menglong had officially entered the system. It was now inside the machine, inside the law, inside the place they never wanted it to reach. And nothing, not power, not silence, not fear, could stop it anymore. The petition had become a force. The case had become a storm. and the movement for Yu Menglong had just become unstoppable.